I asked some of the folks joining today to pivot the presentation to make it to be more mindful of what's happening right now, because it is a little bit of a spectacle out there. Even starting this webinar, I was just losing my mind and just needed to find my calming center. So we quickly, over the course of 48 hours, Gina, who's our partnership manager, helped me put together a really great playbook from our end of what we can do to survive this time. So I think we should just dive in. I of course love questions and feedback through the process, so feel free to put them in the Q&A. As I mentioned, I've been through one crisis or recession, and it looks like we may be heading in that same direction, although a little bit too early to tell. There's no question that we are in a health crisis, a economic crisis, and a financial crisis right now for sure. And right now, it's all about being prepared. A lot of these newbie sellers or newbie brands and retailers, or even brands that have been doing this for a long time, we're experiencing pretty crazy times. So it's really important to be prepared so that your company can actually see this through and actually come out on top through this. So this isn't about Skubana. This is really about how we can win as retailers and brands in today's day and age. Skubana is a platform to run and automate your business on the back end, no matter how you sell or where you sell. And I do think automation is a big important of seeing this through and coming out the other side. But most for this presentation, we were going to keep our old slides, and I was like, I am not going to keep my old slides. I think for me as a human being, I just want to be here in a time of need for those that are trying to get through this. And it's just about being real, because the US, at least where I am located, is completely shut down. And I just want to help people. And certainly doing the research and doing this analysis and talking to other brands, I wanted to bring some perspective of what I'm seeing that others are doing during this time period. So yeah, we're experiencing something we've never seen before. Obviously, prices are surging on Amazon. Businesses that I'm talking to are figuring out what are they doing with their variable expenses and their overhead expenses. What are they doing about supply chain? What are they doing about their revenue? I've seen some brands that have revenue being tremendously up, depending on the category. Amazon specifically is up in major categories, 20%, 30%, and 40%. And in specific categories, for example, like suitcases, are down tremendously. And so again, this is all about how we can deal with it and how we can be prepared. I can tell you that these are screenshots on the right of me trying to ship stuff to FBA for my e-commerce business. We have over 1,800 SKUs at Amazon. Most of them are Prime eligible, and we are now down to just 4 SKUs that are Prime eligible right now on Amazon. And so Amazon's only allowing medical supplies and things that are very important to their customers to be coming into FBA. I think it's for the next till April 5th. So that's pretty big. And the most important thing is we're just not going to stop, right? We are actually going to keep going. We're not shutting down. We are reprioritizing. And I'm just thinking more strategically of how I can serve our customers and adapt to the environment of what's happening. So we've put together, we sort of categorize it as hey, here's what we're doing for employees. Here's what you can do for your business. Here's what you can do for your customers. And here's what you can do for yourself. And so for me, this is the mindset that I'm in. And I just want to also just mention, I just came off of a 3-day pivot with my wife. My wife owns a yoga studio in Nyack called Soul Flight. And that studio is physical. She has 2 floors, and she's been forced to shut down, and we pivoted her business to virtual in 3 days. And for example, this morning she had about 20 people in class. Last night she had 30 people in class. So things are not stopping. We need to adjust in real time to what we're seeing on the ground to overcome this time. And the most important thing is to not let fear get to you. So let's just focus on the employees first. At least from my perspective, it's super important to over communicate to the employees that are at your company. We've been really working on making sure that there's a human-to-human connection for people. So saying no to social distancing, we are physically distancing ourselves, but we are actually embracing the physical distance, but not the social distance. And you'll see later on what we're doing to make sure that we're actually keeping our culture alive, even though we've been forced to go remotely. The other thing I've been doing is a meeting with key leaders at the company that are managing teams to understand how I can actually support them forward. The biggest thing for a lot of the employees has been just predictability. They want to know what's happening. They want us to keep them focused. They want us to be transparent with them. We're using JustWorks as an HR platform, and we just announced giving our employees Talkspace, which is essentially mental health sessions for them if they need it, along with giving them resources. And so we're really trying to be very involved because work is such a big part of our employees' life. And again, this is just a plan that we're adopting as we're seeing it in real time. So another really good nugget that we decided to do was a virtual happy hour. So we use Zoom internally for remote meetings. And we were trying to figure out how do we maintain culture? How do we get people, because like we hop on these calls together, all together as a company, and we're saying, hey, is it business as usual? Is it not business as usual? And so we're doing check-ins on those calls where we're really getting in touch with the emotions. So everyone will go around and say, hey, here's an emotion that I'm feeling right now, and just getting it all out there before we dive into the business. Because again, our business must keep going on. Typically in my office, before we have big meetings, we'll have a body stand. We use Calm app for a body stand. You can do a 2-minute, a 5-minute, or a 10-minute body stand. You can do that with your team collectively. And then today we're having a town hall. So after the town hall, we'll be moving into this virtual happy hour where we have 5 different rooms that are all different topics. So the first home, what recipes you're doing, what are you doing for eating, what is your routine looking like, a random channel like, hey, this is the music we're listening to, or this is things that are going on for me outside of work. We're encouraging the people to talk about their feelings in room 3, and then in room 4 is like, hey, what are you doing outside of work? Where are you hiking? What are you watching? What podcasts are you listening to? What are you reading? So I think these are just good ways to counteract what's happening. These are things that we're doing. We also managed to give our team just things to do during this time, because it could be super lonely as you're quarantining. In this time of need, we're just trying to be there for people of what they can do outside of the office during this time. So this has been circulating around the net, and then we gave this to our employees. We're just doing everything in our power to be here for them. So as a business, we have essentially appointed a senior person at the company to be the war room expert, to help us find solutions and to be really on the ground floor, analyzing what's happening, understanding how our customers are doing. For example, I just had someone on our CS team. I'm having him calling our biggest and best clients to understand what are they seeing in their business, and doing whatever we can to fortify our relationship forward. You know, when shit hits the fan, you have to be there for people more than ever, and this is a great time to be here for your customers and your clients. Understanding what are the downside risks. So from supply chain to R&D to product lines, just someone to have their ear in the ground and really be a voice for us of reason during this time. I truly do believe that cash is very, very important right now. We are in a once in 100-year event, so we are literally in the history books right now, living through it in real time. I think it's a pretty fascinating time to be alive. Making sure if you are selling to brick and mortar stores that you're collecting money, incentivizing them to give you your money now, even though they might have a 30, 60, 90-day payment terms with you, seeing what you can do to incentivize and collect money now versus money later. Understanding just your cash flow planning, and I did allude to earlier your understanding the scenarios of like, hey, if this is a 3-week cycle, is this a 6-week cycle, is this a 9-week cycle, what's happening? If you do have office space and you're remote right now, I do expect landlords to be giving concessions right now. It's only fair to be asking for those concessions, and those that don't ask don't get. So very, very important to just like see if you can try to get a concession. Lastly, just understanding your acquisition costs. I know Facebook just came out with actually giving small business companies lines of credit. If you want that link after this webinar, just email me at chat@Skubana. I'm happy to give it to you. That's something that Facebook launched, but also just addressing your spend right now to what your lifetime value of your customer is, and just adjusting in real time. I think that's an invaluable decision to make, because right now it's all about how quickly you pivot or change what's happening to survive. So they say the strongest survive, and right now I'm saying the quickest survive. One of the things you could be analyzing, and this is something that's built in Skubana, but if you don't use Skubana today, you can do it the old-fashioned way and manually, which is doing variability forecasting. So saying, based on my sales on a moving average of the last 10, 15, or 30 days, right? What am I going to run out of stock in the next 30, 60, 90 days? Understanding the profitability of those SKUs and either doubling down, or even maybe if they are a high velocity item and they're a high velocity but low margin item, you may want to look into subtly increasing the price. Now, on Amazon, the caveat is that price small hinges swing big doors. So a small increase in price should actually affect your sessions and your velocity. So I'm recommending on Amazon to be doing that small sample batches at a time. But right now you need to have a plan. You need to act quickly. If you don't have a plan, the people that don't have a plan are going to fail. So looking at profitability across all your channels, how they're performing, where you can be diverting inventory, where you could be increasing pricing, increasing your margin, what's running out of stock, and understand, of course, what are the implications of running out of stock for high margin opportunity or high margin items that are necessary. You can start doing some marketing campaigns directly to specific customers and customer segmentations. So if you're using like a Klaviyo, you can segment customers by your most repeat customers, your highest ticket customers, etc., to offset any decline in spend. One of the things I'm seeing that companies are doing right now, brands and retailers are, especially if they run out of stock for items, they're using gift cards almost like bonds, where they're essentially selling the gift card at 75, but it'll equal $100 later. So this is one way to get money in the door and keep revenue going if you are running into a supply chain jam, you can't get product, or you've just sold out of product because of the unanticipated demand that's happening. That's a lot. Okay, let's keep it going. So supply chain, what we're hearing, at least right now, is raw materials, and I can just give an experience share. My e-commerce business before starting Skubana, we are actually we're still alive today. It's running. A lot of it's automated with Skubana, but we are experiencing raw material increases dramatically. The reason why is because the vacuum bags and the air purifiers are made from the same melt blown cotton that is made of the mask that people are wearing today. There's a dynamic that's happening with your air freight right now because there's limited cargo being flown, and there's increased demand to have air cargo being flown. So it doesn't really, the capacity in the belly of the planes are being limited, which is causing the cost of air shipments to rise right now. So making sure that you're actually anticipating the demand and anticipating that there is going to be some supply chain logistics issues that you'll be encountering. So making sure that you're baking that into your lead time is really, 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 really important. So understanding what's happening in your warehouse or your 3PL, especially if there were a government decree that happens where you just literally can't go, the temp staff or just the staff in the 3PL in your own company or in the outsourced warehouse can't get the staff. So what will happen at that point? One of a 3PL that I know said that they offer their customers the ability to pick up their inventory items and bring them into a storage container to ship it themselves. That's something that I was not willing to do, but maybe that's an option that you can employ. So just doing a check-in of what's happening to make sure your business doesn't get disrupted right now. Okay, this is something from Lumi that they post. I think this is kind of dated at this point, but they have a network status page that tells you what's happening in the US and China. I assure you that while China is maybe allowing their employees to get back to work right now, there are other issues that are happening in China, like they can't get raw materials, they can't move quick enough. So understanding just having this kind of framework, right? A spreadsheet that you have with your team, maybe it's on Slack or whatever, is like, are the factories open? Yeah, okay, they may be open. Are they actually in production right now, or are all the staff maybe not all there to produce. Are they able to get the raw materials? What's their capacity? Are there any lead time delays? Are they changing the pricing on you? So this is something that Lumi shared. I think it's a good framework. And although I do think it's out of date, I think this was updated on the 17th. And I am seeing more significant changes than this because I'm seeing that some factories in the United States are not open. And I'm certainly seeing that a lot of Chinese employees are not back to work, and it's not business as usual there either, no matter what you hear on the news. Understanding just where your items are being shipped at across the United States, along with on Amazon, is important. You may want to be switching your FBA SKUs and making them merchant fulfilled at this time. If you do have an FBA SKU, make sure you add a toggle for being merchant fulfilled so that you're not out of stock and it doesn't hurt your bestseller rank. I do believe that when these big sellers on Amazon or brands are on Amazon and they run out of stock, it's naturally afford the opportunity for others to essentially increase their bestseller rank and get the top position. So in a time of weakness, you need to make sure you're capitalizing on that. Also, by the way, I have 2 warehouses. I have one in Metro, I have one in New Jersey. So being able to understand where items are being shipped out of, but also allocating maybe more of my inventory to be shipped out of Mexico versus the United States right now, of course, until maybe the borders do officially close for product. We'll see what happens there. So again, I said, like, now is not a time to quit. Now's a time to essentially double down. And essentially, it's being in this mindset. I know we're all experiencing adversity, but adversity, a lot of other people started their first businesses as well, which we'll get into. One of the things I think is important to see is how you can find technology to automate the low value repetitive tasks so you can have your team, if you are understaffed, to do higher value activities during this time. Of course, anticipating a bounce back and being prepared for it, and new customer buying behaviors that may result from this that we're experiencing. And then the last thing I think is really, really interesting is, like, if you do have cash on hand and you have been in a position of strength for the past 5 years or even the decade, is exploring M&A. Stuff's going to be really cheap right now. And I believe that there's an opportunity to capitalize on either Amazon businesses or other brands that are synergistic to you, that you can essentially, that have duplicative costs, that by a combination, 1 + 1 = 5. I think it's an interesting opportunity right now where there could be buyers in the market, and certainly I am one of those. Again, when doors close, other doors open. It allows us to become better versions of ourselves. And you can see this was an interesting tweet that I saw online where, like, SoulCycle was created during the downturn, Airbnb, Momofuku. And so essentially during these bad times, there is an end in sight. And, like, again, this is how I left my horrible job on Wall Street to go ahead and start a direct consumer brand called Think Crucial, which manufactures home appliance parts and accessories. Oh yeah, okay, great, cool. So we're on number 3 here. So communicating with customers. I am certainly not someone that just likes to sweep things under the rug. I don't think this is business as usual. I think it's really important to actually strengthen your community and reach out to those customers on the front line. So you can see these are examples of just, like, really bad advertising where they haven't tweaked their messaging, and to me just falls on deaf ears. These emails that I'm getting that aren't addressing the issue and aren't actually, like, reaching out and seeing how they can be even helpful in this time of crisis, I think this means that there's an opportunity, right? These big businesses don't understand how to essentially relate with their customers. But here's an example of someone who's killing it. Unbound Babes. They essentially sent out a email. This is part of their email where essentially they've crowdsourced what you can do that's pleasurable right now in your business and letting their customers add to this spreadsheet. So it's a crowdsourced spreadsheet. I thought this was freaking brilliant. The link is right here. I actually have the link in the PowerPoint, so we'll hopefully share this in the replay. And of course, if you want to email me for the link and you want access to this sooner, just feel free to email me at chat@Skubana. But the subject was let's crowdsource some pleasure. Again, there's different tabs here at the bottom of all the different things that people are doing at home, listening to music, what they're reading, what they're watching, what content they're looking at. I thought it was really, really interesting and just a great way to build a relationship with your customers and to get them involved and proactive. Last thing to mention here is just we have built a private Slack community for brands and retailers right now. It really was built before Corona happened, although there happens to be a Corona channel in our Slack community. But this is a place where essentially us as brands and retailers can get together and actually drop nuggets together. So it becomes a many-to-many relationship. It's not me speaking at people, it's everyone collaborating together and dropping value of what they're seeing in real time, not just as it relates to Corona, but it relates to nuggets, assets, collateral, swipe files. Actually, the Unbound Babes was actually pulled from a swipe file that was dropped in the community. So if you want to apply, this is my bonus for my part of the segment here. If you want to apply, go to this bit.ly link right here, http://bit.ly/slack/d2c. I think we can also do it in lowercase as well, and it should work, but it might be case sensitive, so just keep that in mind. But go ahead and apply there. We'll let you in. We're letting people in cohorts. There's been a lot of people have wanted to join, but it's some seriously heavy operators that are in there that are part of it, and we are extending that invite to those that are joining the webinar today. All right, that's it for my section. We've got Tenuity. I think we've got Pat up next. Pat, do you have the slides?